I don't know if you guys are ready to see Nike's weirdest and wildest Air Max sneaker. It's been very interesting to see Nike's approach to adding air to their signature Air Max cushioning. I mean, it seems like they just want to break records with adding a bigger and bigger air unit. But at the same time, it does seem like Nike have really thought about this one. So let's find out if it really is as comfortable as all this air suggests. So here is the box, and this is probably the plainest box I have ever seen. The only kind of thing on this box is the actual sticker which shows you the size. Now this is actually part of Nike's new plan to remove double boxing sneakers, so this would actually be your shipping box. You get a little bit of branding on the inside as well as some double-sided tape so you can repackage these if you did need to return them. And then we get the crazy sneakers, guys. Are you ready for this? This is wild. This is the Nike Air Max Scorpion. So here they are looking absolutely wild. I mean, this air unit kind of just makes me think of some kind of like water safety thing. Like if you were drowning, you'd pull some kind of ripcord and huge air units expand from the side. So this is the latest and greatest in terms of Nike's Air Max sneaker. I mean, in 2017, they released the Vapor Max, which was kind of the pinnacle for Air Maxes at the time. Next year, Nike released the Air Max 270, and this had a huge air unit at the back. The Nike Air Max 720 followed in 2019, and that was the most air they have ever put in an Air Max sneaker. As you remember, it had a full-length air unit. Now after that, they seemed to kind of dial things back a little bit in 2020 and 2021. That was when they dropped the Air Max 2090 and the Air Max 2021. And those Air Maxes seemed to be a lot more conservative. They didn't seem like they were following the same trend of more air, better. But this year, guys, looking at the Air Max Scorpion, it's gotta be the craziest Air Max I've ever seen. Now, in terms of design, you can definitely see where they've taken their inspiration from previous Air Max silhouettes, like the upper, heavily inspired by the Vapor Max. I mean, the midsole also resembles the Air Max 720 as well. It's a little bit more segmented, so you can kind of say maybe the midsole resembles a Vapor Max as well. The name Scorpion actually comes from when you look at the shoe from underneath. This kind of little point here with these little forefront air unit, I guess it kind of looks like a little mini scorpion, so I think it's actually pretty fitting. I think this is one of the better names that they've come up with for an Air Max sneaker. Personally, I never thought that the Nike Vapor Max was ever really the best looking shoe. I just never really liked it, but it went on to be like one of the best selling sneakers ever. One thing that I always felt held back the Vapor Max, at least for me personally, was the retail price. It was always insanely high, and sadly, these things follow that trend. Retail on these is a whopping £225, which I believe when they do release out in the US is going to work out to be like $240, maybe $250. Now, in terms of a release date, you can expect these to drop mid-September. I actually got my pair from a retailer here in the UK who dropped them early. They're called Size. Now, this specific colorway is kind of like the launch colorway, so the first one available. But as you can see, we've already started seeing images of plenty of other colorways, including a triple black, a kind of wheat color, even a black and purple. Now, for such a high retail price, what are these things made of, and how do they feel on foot? Is it actually worth that price? Are these insanely comfortable to the point where you step in them and you do actually feel like you're walking on clouds? Well, let's talk about that. So the upper actually stays pretty simple. Like, it is just completely Flyknit. That is Nike's signature knit material. And I must say, in hand, it does actually feel like a pretty decent quality sneaker. Everything just feels pretty sturdy, like it would last a long time. Flyknit, traditionally speaking, is quite a sturdy knit material. It doesn't have a lot of stretch. It's got a little bit of stretch around the sock liner and sort of around the eye stays. And I think one of the most interesting things about this particular Flyknit is the variation in texture. So for the most part, especially around the toe box, it remains very light and breathable. As you can see, they've kind of knitted in some perforation holes. All of the branding, so the Nike swoosh on the medial and lateral sides, that's all kind of knitted or embroidered into the side of the shoe, so there's nothing kind of hanging off. But one of my favorite elements about this sneaker is the kind of towel or nappy material that they added around the eye stays and the tongue. It's a very small detail, but it adds a little bit of depth to the design. Like, there's different textures and something about it that just really grabs your eye, and I really like it. You've got a couple other very small branding details. Like on the pull tab, you can see the Nike text in kind of these dots. You also get the dots on the tongue of the shoe, and that just kind of says Air Max. And then you've got a very small rubberized Nike swoosh on the toe box. Surrounding the sneaker is this felt material which acts as the mudguard, and of course, I guess mixed with the plastic that kind of merges into the midsole of this sneaker. Let me get to the insane part about this sneaker, which obviously is the freaking air unit. And how massive is that? Now, this air unit is really interesting in design. Unlike the Vapor Max, it's not segmented into a bunch of really small pockets of air. And unlike the 720, it's not just one huge wraparound air unit. It's kind of a mixture of both. Take a look at the bottom of the sneaker. It kind of looks like the air unit is segmented, but actually you can see they all have different connecting points. So technically speaking, this is just one massive air unit. The design of this air unit is supposed to feel incredible on foot, and I can confirm it actually feels pretty good, even though it does feel massive on foot. Like, don't get me wrong, this air unit doesn't just look big, but it also feels big when you're walking around, especially from the top down view when this upper is kind of got this really narrow appearance and you can just see the air unit spilling over each side of the sneaker. The way that they feel on foot is not a huge difference to previous sneakers that you may have felt from the Air Max lineup. So if you've tried a Vapor Max or a 720, it kind of feels like literally in the middle of those. I will say that having such a wide base of air underneath you does give you a lot more stability than the Vapor Max and I guess the 720 combined. You definitely feel like you're a lot less inclined to kind of roll your ankle or just kind of slip around. It does definitely give you that stability which was lacking in some of the previous Air Maxes. Like, I mean, man, I couldn't imagine getting very far actually running in these things. Like, I'm sure it's not the toughest task in the world, but it definitely wouldn't be my first choice in terms of a running shoe. Now, in terms of sizing, I would actually say stick with your true to size unless you are a particularly wider footed person, because the upper is a little bit more narrow. So is this the future of the Air Max silhouette? Is Nike just gonna keep adding ridiculous amounts of air into their sneakers? Does it make the sneakers more comfortable? I think they're getting more strategic about it. Like, you can see when they got to the 720, they just wanted to throw in as much air as possible. They've kind of refined that. This design with the pockets is definitely got a little bit more of the comfortability factor in mind, how people actually walk. And I actually read somewhere that Nike's plan for the future of the Air Max sneaker is to have an adjustable air unit where you can kind of increase and decrease the amount of air that's actually in the midsole. I think that could be very interesting in terms of comfortability and just how the shoes feel on foot. But for right now, the Air Max Scorpion is a very interesting option. And of course, I would love to know your thoughts on these things. But for right now, guys, that pretty much wraps it up for today's video. I want to thank you so much for coming through, hanging out for yet again another video. Thank you for liking, commenting, and of course subscribing. I'll catch you guys in the next one. But until then.